Hello everyone, welcome back for another episode of Don't Talk If You Don't Know, the unofficial official podcast dedicated to all things high-level team fight tactics, at least in North America. My name is Frodan, I'm your host as always, joined once again, back-to-back episodes, is Nathan, that's Admirable, Zamora filling in for Bryce, while Bryce is still traveling back from Scotland, celebrating his father's birthday. Hope they had a good time. Nathan, how you doing, man? How was your weekend?
Well, it was pretty good. I'm certain that you can remember quite a bit of it. Regionals was, I thought, fantastic. And I'm just excited about who's joining us, too, because we have two very fantastic performers from the tournament who happen to be right next to me.
That's right. We have the top two of the tournament. We got JukeYou and rereplay. So let's start off with JukeYou. Why don't you introduce yourself? First of all, should we even call you JukeYou or should we call you something else? Yami dudes, perhaps?
Oh my god, dude, that name was just like an old, super old username that I used when I played games with my younger brother, and it was like before the period of time when you would have more than one computer in the house, so of course you had to play together. So I can't believe it stuck this far or this long, and now like it's being introduced. Yeah, no, I can be just JukeYou.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so I'm JukeYou. That's a weird thing to say, but yeah, that's my name. I've been playing for a while. I've been playing since set 1. I hit Challenger for the first time in set 3.5, watching the likes of Chromex and Goose, or GV8 at that time. And yeah, I've been consistently Challenger ever since. When double up came up, I played a ton of double up. Sort of sit rank 1 there, go to EOS, get rank 1 there, go to Korea, get rank 1 there has been my thing. And then kind of took a break from double up this set to play competitive, and here I am.
Wow. So I want to actually ask a couple of follow-up questions. The first is double up versus solo queue. You're not the first person to talk about how double up is a really good way for them to practice. I guess they inform. Do you think double up has even more potential than solo queue? Because some people have been talking about that before in the past. They love double up even more than just solos. What do you think?
I think it's a mixed bag. So it's only 4 players. The balance has to be really good for double up to be good. You can't just dodge the high rollers. You basically play them every other round. Either you or your teammate play them every other round. So it's a lot about knowing the broken thing and forcing the broken thing between the two of you. So it's kind of a little bit annoying in that sense. But just as a game mode, it's a lot more complex because you have to think about more things, right? You have to plan your board, your teammate's board. At the time when I was playing, you could still send items to each other, which obviously became a problem. But really figuring out your items was also a skill. So I really thought it was more fun for me because you can sort of banter with your teammate at the same time. But yeah, there's so much more strategy to it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm curious to get to know you a little bit more as well, but I also want to welcome in our other guest at the same time. It is replay. Go by Skanda Polani. Am I pronouncing that correct? Is that your real name?
I actually changed I made a new Twitter that has replay TFT.
Oh, okay. I'll change it live on the fly.
Hang on 1 second. Replay TFT.
Got it.
It's actually just replay without the TFT.
Oh.
All right. So we just got replay on Twitter. You got replay on Twitter?
Yeah, I think so.
My goodness gracious. So. This guy is Mr. Worldwide now. Just everyone bet into as well. Why don't you introduce yourself to anyone who's never heard or seen you before?
Yeah, so I started playing in beta, and I played set 1. I think I hit top 10 set 1, and then I quit for set 2 because that set was not really good. And then I played set 3. I played all of set 3, and I was top 10 for a large part of it, and I played in regionals then. But set 3 did not have many tournaments, and I got day 1 regionals. It was pretty sad. And then I kind of just started working, so I didn't really have time to play most other sets. And I started playing again back in set 8. So
then what? I know we talked about it at the end of the broadcast, but to talk about it in this podcast, what was the reason you came back after, you know, four to five sets off?
Yeah, so I was kind of honestly just bored of working, and I was like kind of wanted to quit my job and do something else. And then
Oh yeah.
like the way it works out is like I kind of have like a non-compete from working, so like I can't really work in the same field for a year. So I decided to play TFT for a year.
Oh, so this is just the first of 2 sets that you're gonna really try hard. Is that what's going on?
I'm definitely committed to playing the next set.
Ah,
Wow.
all right. That's really cool. What are you allowed to talk about your job, like what you do outside of like outside of TFT?
It's basically like a software dev and a trading company.
Ah, okay. Wow, it seems like that's a common theme, Nathan.
That's
Like a lot of people are
everybody.
like that.
Yeah.
Is that the job that's a prerequisite because you have the flexibility to play TFT? Like socks is the same thing too.
I was just about to ask this actually.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people who are into games and computers just end up naturally in software dev. Like, oh, I could do computers for a living? Great.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I really missed the ball here.
Yeah, at least you did, but you're not a player, Nathan. You are a commentator.
Whoa, hang on. That comes from a different background. I was kind of just curiously crazy by the thought that you took like 4.5 sets off and then you just come back and you're like, oh yeah, let me just make it to Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty bad in the beginning of the set. I think I got a lot better over the course of it. I think like mid set was around when I started becoming like a normal challenger player to like actually like good at the game.
Yeah, just gotta polish it up a little bit. That makes sense to me.
Interesting. So you definitely felt that rust that you hadn't like played for a long time, and so then what was like your what did you do to get back into like elite form? I think some players probably are wondering, right? Like, is it felt like you came out of nowhere again, because that's what happened in set 3. No one really knew who you were, and then you come in set 8 and so all of a sudden it's like, whoa, who is this replay guy again? So like, what are some of your things that you're doing that you feel like can help you learn and acclimate fast enough for people who also want to follow your footsteps?
I mean, I think like obviously like watching a lot of other players is like really important, because like I do the same thing over and over again, but if I see other players like they do completely different things, and then you open your horizons. I think something else that like I don't know if a lot of people do is like you don't have to like do like full VOD reviews of your own games, but like whenever you like bot for, just like try to think of like why you bought for that game, and like you can look in like key fights or key moments and see if you make different decisions. So it only takes like 5 minutes or something, like nothing long.
Got it. We've asked JukeYou during his regionals winner interview where he said that this was like the first game that he was hyper competitive at and able to kind of perform at an elite level. Is that the same for you, replay?
Like I was pretty good at like in Hearthstone, and like in high school during classes I was like often top 10 in Hearthstone. And then like I played also like Hearthstone Battlegrounds. I played it like I think post set 3-ish. Just like on the side. I think I was like traveling and stuff, so I was like playing mobile a lot of the times, but I was like top 10 for like a long period of time in that game too.
What the heck, man?
Wow,
This guy's just top 10 at everything he does.
Wait, hang on. Was your name on Hearthstone replay?
Yes.
What time period were you playing?
I think it was post set 3.
Okay, so 2 years,
Wow.
3 years ago, Nathan. 3 years ago. It was right when Grandmasters had started, then, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
Or
that was when
in the swing of it.
That was when, unfortunately, competitively, we had to stop paying attention to ladder because we had to focus full time on 16 players.
Yeah, unfortunate. Well, just a last thing. How old are you, replay?
25.
Okay, 25. So the interesting thing is more about like, because people talk about TFT being a young person's game, and I feel like it becomes more common to see people who are just straight up adults. JukeYou, how old are you?
I'm 29, man.
You're 29. Well, I mean, I can't tell, man. You look like me. We're like young Asian dudes, but are we 25? Are we 35? Are we 65? You don't really know. You just have to ask us.
There's no way to tell.
So do you feel like so just a question, you guys are on the older side of competitors. Do you feel like TFT does skew towards younger players to give them an advantage, or do you feel like that's not really true, and you feel like because of all these other factors, whether or not you have experience playing games or whatnot, do you think that also is working to your advantage, Juke?
I think there's some it's more of a like give and take here, compared to like a game like League of Legends where you have these freaking like 13-year-olds coming out of middle school like wrecking everybody. But I remember I was watching like last week's podcast or I guess maybe 2 weeks ago, the one with dpei, and dpei talking about how like we can't play that many games in a row. We have to go and see sunlight and stretch. And then you asking him how old he was. He was like, I'm 29. Like, holy shit, I'm 29. Yeah, I totally feel that. We were joking, right? For the 8-game day for day 2, it was like the Zoomers of the bunch are going to have like a field day for the game 7 and 8 because like we're gonna be burnt out by 7 8, and it was true. I was burnt out by game 6 or game 6. So 6, 7, and 8 of day 2 wasn't so hot for me. So in that sense, it was like good or bad for us, good for them. But there's definitely more like discipline. You could use more discipline for this kind of game to not tilt. You can do more studying and know more lines in this game, and that's not necessarily associated with being young. So I think based on results, like players like Robin being still like pretty top of his form, like yeah, you can see both young and old players here.
Why, dude? Robin's like a year older than you, man. You're
Yeah.
like you're just using him as an
Yeah,
extreme.
I'm on the old side. I call myself old now.
All right.
I can't imagine doing this like in 2 years. Although I might.
Man, I don't even feel that
Oh,
old. I
man.
just had like a big injury. Like, I don't know.
Oh.
I don't see it. I guess like the older you get, kind of like nothing seems older the older you get. It's really weird. I don't really know.
It could be. When you get to like 32, 33, you just think that's the same as like 38 at that point. But I think when you're 22, you feel like 28 is like the oldest thing ever, I guess, if you're in that range.
That was how I felt at that age, I remember.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for making us feel really old. Nathan and I are both in our 30s for now, and then we'll
Yeah, I
in
won't
our
be there
40s.
much longer.
Yeah, that's right. When do you turn 30, Juke? When do you turn 30?
In 4 months.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe you can be a world champion before you turn 30. Let's go ahead and hop into the main portion of the show using all of our fancy graphics and whatnot. And so first thing we always do is talk about news. Speaking of old, this might be a little bit old news to everybody else, but the patch for 13.10 is not very big. It's only just a couple of tweaks. So we're going to be buffing Anima Squad, Ace, the specific Ace trait, Draven and Jax, both Double Trouble 2 and 3, and the Hero Augment Jubilant Veil for Neela, and then nerfs to Gadgettine and Pantheon. And so we have 2 Worlds competitors here. I want to get their reactions based off the patch. Do you feel like this is like the correct tweaks? Mortar already said that he didn't want to actually do a big patch to influence things going into the World Championship. We'll start with replay. What do you think about the patch?
I saw like the exact numbers, and the thing I liked is like there's no large changes really. Like all these changes like are extremely small that I don't really expect them to change the matter that much. Something in particular though is the Jax. Like I don't think many people in NA or like me particularly have played much Jax since like it was broken a long time ago. So like maybe you need to look into that a little more. Also the Pantheon changes look kind of small. That like Lulu reroll is still probably going to be like quite solid.
Yeah, although I think most people would point at it's not necessarily the Lulu reroll per se, it's the augments surrounding it. If Lulu gets Axiom Arc and like kind of the crazy combinations, but they have like Jeweled Lotus and Battle Mage and everything like that, that's when it starts getting kind of crazy. And without it, it does feel like strong but kind of beatable. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, it's mostly when you get Axiom Arc with Lulu, I don't know what like the delta is like stats wise, but it feels like it's insane the difference between Axiom Arc and non Axiom Arc.
Oh yeah.
Also, like Lulu, I feel like is more like matchup particular than other comps. Where like Lulu into Spell Slingers feels really weak, but Lulu into like other comps are like I don't know, like Infinity Team for example is like you just run over the board.
Yeah, it's true. The Ox Force is what really stops that crazy big resets for Lulu when she gets stuck for a naturally large time. Now, JukeYou, kind of want to get some of your thoughts here. Outside of the stuff that replay already mentioned, is there anything else that catches your eye?
5 AD on Anima sounds like, it could be the tipping point that comp has always been. Are you plus 50 HP or are you plus 100 HP at certain points in the game? So 5 AD might be like the Lee Sin meme, right?
Yeah.
So that one I have my eye on. I don't really think 4 Ace makes a big difference. I was trying to do some. I feel like China might value 4 Ace more than NA does. I'm not completely sure. I was trying to bot review Hong or Aha or someone, but I think he was just trolling in solo queue. He was playing a lot of 4 Ace. I was like, why are you doing this? He went like bot 4 twice in a row. So I don't think 4 Ace makes a big difference. I'm scared of Draven coming back in the meta, but probably it's not a big deal. And Double Trouble, I think the biggest problem with Double Trouble is like you pick it and your board isn't a Double Trouble board yet, and you're weak. This is like 4 ADAP. It's like a prep stack, right? It's okay, but it's not going to make a big difference in terms of tempo.
All right.
So it feels like what y'all are saying is that, like, in terms of balance stuff, really one of the biggest things to look at would be augments. Is that something that y'all feel is true?
What do you mean by that?
Oh, I think currently the game is like quite balanced. Like I'm happy that they haven't changed much, like including augments.
Okay, so like the specific problem would just be like Lulu with specific augments. Okay, that's not very much, I think.
Well, okay, so I mean, there's more changes that hasn't been listed. I think one of the bigger ones also is that they fixed a couple of bugs. For example, there was something that circulated thanks to a few really astute members of the legendary Frodan Discord server that noticed that the crit interaction with Samira and Infinity Edge was actually not working as intended, and apparently when they fixed the situation with Gnar, because earlier in the set, a couple patches ago, Gnar was still double critting with his base ability plus Infinity Edge. So if you put IE on Gnar, it would actually stack the crits, which was not supposed to happen. But by changing that, I think they accidentally broke it on a couple of champions, and I think that went under the radar for one patch, and we didn't notice because it was very subtle. And then more data came in, all of a sudden it started revealing itself. So that's really nice. A buff to AD, which I think makes players like rereplay happy, because I know you love AD a lot, right? So hopefully that's a big shot. Now, were you trying to avoid that all weekend? I feel like some players were just like, my God, I can't make this Infinity Edge because I don't know who it's broken on.
No, I actually knew it was bugged like from the moment it was bugged, and I actually kept on the
Really?
down low because because I knew in the stats like it was really bad, and then I also like I looked into like as you have more sure shots, like the item doesn't get any better. So like, I knew it was bugged, but like I also like didn't really know how it was bugged. But I was just like, I'm not really gonna look into this. It's like very likely bugged, but like it's kind of whatever. And like I was kind of like the only person that like really plays the Infinitum line that often, or like really most AD lines that often. But like yeah, I kind of just didn't say anything though.
My goodness.
Maybe a bad look. Maybe a bad look.
Well,
it's like inverse tech.
I didn't realize that you had been the first to catch on to that. That's really cool. I think, and now that you mention it, I think someone did say that to me one time. Like replay actually knew that time in advance. Oh, actually, Talai's in chat and said he messaged me instantly like weeks ago. Is that true? Can you corroborate that?
We were playing a game together, and I was like I can't build this Infinity Edge, and he was in the game too. I was like, I'm not crazy, right? These stats don't make any sense to me, right? And yeah.
Interesting. Well, supposedly they fixed that, so going into it, we'll see. Who knows if they fixed everything, or maybe it's another situation where they fixed that on Samira, it breaks somewhere else, but I guess we have time to find out. And the last thing was that they changed the interaction with Ezreal quick draw and his projectile double casting, or in some cases, I think Leduc was saying it was triple casting, and if you were able to set it up. And I think that is something that was under debate, whether or not that was like bug abusing. JukeYou even played Hacker Ezreal, by the way. Some of the dark tech, the forbidden tech, if you will. So JukeYou, why don't you add some commentary to what I'm talking about here?
Okay, so I knew about the double cast because I played against Coleman in solo queue, and he was hackering his Ezreal. I'm like, what the hell is this thing doing? Why is it killing everything? So I thought what was happening was if his first cast kills one thing, then his quick draw will kill a different thing, and you could kill two things at once. Wow, great value. But I guess Leduc's video came out and was like, wow, it's actually super bugged. That said, it's really hard to reach the threshold, by the way, for the bug, because it only applies if the main cast kills, and you're already building healing, and you're already building a blue buff. So what kind of damage do you have to make your main cast kill something in one hit? Like, it's very hard. So even in my game, I think it only bugged one fight, It bugged twice that one fight, and it was already a one fight because I was hacking Ezreal, killing like the Lulu. So I don't think it makes that big of a difference. It ultimately comes down to hacker kills backline units, and you win the fight.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that, because if anything, you were like one fight away from taking like a 6th or 7th, right? Because you were like kind of stable, and then all of a sudden you lost like 1 or 2 fights. Like, oh my god, this hacker Ezreal might just out of nowhere go 6th or 7th. But then you were able to like almost win out and land very nicely in the top 2, I believe. So that was a great game. One of many compositions that JukeYou played, by the way, throughout the weekend, which we'll get into regionals soon though. So with that, let's talk about regionals, shall we? And get ready to jump into straight up. How about we go into stats first? I feel like stats are like kind of something that people really want to talk about. So do I have it here? Yes. So here we go. I'm gonna pull up onto the main screen. So on regionals, the 4 most popular compositions were Oxforce Spellslingers, Riftwalker Jinflex, Lasercore Warwick, and Gadgettine Gnar, which had a couple of different variations. And then right behind it was Lulu, so kind of like a top 5, if you will. But not all of them performed particularly really strongly. I think the most interesting thing was that Oxforce Spellslinger performed quite bad in average placement and in win rate. And it was so popular because I think it was just people were contesting each other. And then you also have things like Lulu, who is touted to be such a high win rate, but you also see it's a really high bot 4 rate. So if it got to the top 4, Lulu often won. But if it didn't get to the top 4, it was doing really, really poorly. So kind of want to hear about some of the stats and a little bit about like what you guys think of how that colored your weekend. We'll start off with replay.
Oh, I was kind of looking at the Infinitium Sivir and Samira split up because I play a lot of Infinitium, and I'm kind of surprised that the Samira one is like the stats are good, while the Sivir one, the stats aren't good. I assume this is like Sivir 3 Infinitium. So I feel like the cap on Sivir 3 Infinitium is actually a lot higher than the Samira one. Like honestly, just maybe low sample size.
Okay.
But yeah, I played a lot of Jinflex and Warwick, and I didn't play much like TF because I thought it would be really contested during the tourney, and I think it was really contested the first 2 days. Like by the time it got to the 3rd day, I feel like TF was actually like pretty open in those lobbies.
Well, it's kind of interesting because the first day, I think you're right. The first day, you can see it averaged a 4.96. And the second day, it averaged a 5.1 almost. So it got worse on the second day. And then by the end of the day, by the end of the weekend, it was pulled back to like a 4.8, 4.9. So it seemed like you're correct. The last day, it was not nearly as contested. And I think it could be the fact that, for example, like you tried to avoid it. And so the last day is like, you know, players like you perhaps that weren't exactly like open to line versus I think the general field wanted to play a lot of it. JukeYou, what are some stats that are sticking out to you when you're looking at those?
Not necessarily sticking. I guess I'm not that surprised, but I went into the weekend kind of flexing Warwick Jhin, and the third option was Infiniteam. I guess it sounds like the same as replay, but I expected more Infiniteam players, to be honest. I didn't think it was that weak of a line, but it looks like people really shied away from it. That's one thing that I'm noticing here. I'm noticing slightly that even though Jhin was as contested as TF, the stats are better, and I think it just comes down to the TF board being really locked, and you don't really have that many carry options, so you're always already my impression of that comp is that, or Spellslingers in general, is that it really relies on that one unit TF to clean everything up because everyone else is AoE. So like if you don't have TF2, you bottom out. So that's what I see here.
Okay, so would you agree, or would it be fair to say that a good portion of the field had a wrong meta read because of the stats and how it panned out?
I think we started doing in-houses on Wednesday, and between Wednesday and Thursday, everyone was playing TF. So it was doing really well in the lobbies. So everyone went in thinking TF was the comp to play, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that
Interesting.
makes it a wrong meta read because I think TF was really strong. It was more so that when everyone plays TF, TF becomes not strong. But like if everyone plays Jhin, like you can flex different carries on the Jhin comp and still like come out with like a decent result. But you can't really flex your TF carry in the TF comp. I feel like.
Interesting. Okay. Admirable, how about you? What are some? Is there any stats in this list or something that you've noticed that also stands out?
It felt like to me that Belveth was actually like really overperforming in some spots, but I'm curious if that's just because the opening for it was so good. Like I'm taking a lot of account like what I actually saw, and then trying to combine that with what I'm seeing here. I'm kind of surprised at like how strong Gnar felt like when this board actually capped. It's like
What's
some of
surprising
these
about
numbers
it?
just it's just like a 4 average is like, oh my gosh, and then you're looking at like 3.29 in some spots. I mean, again, you have a very low sample size here, but it's like I knew this comp was powerful when it was able to be put together. I didn't realize that it could achieve like such high numbers in terms of just blowing out the rest of the lobby. Like that is pretty surprising to me. Like we're looking at 16 games with a 31.3 win. Like that is like madness.
It was also partially because if you have a spot for Gadgeting, the cap of it's really high because some people just get like Nunu augments, for example, at 4-2, and then there's also people doing some pretty illegal things like Malala hitting Nunu 2 on stage 4 and then just like hard stabilizing winning out. But that's only one of several people that were kind of accomplishing that, and I think everyone kind of understands that if Gadgeting, you have to set up for it, it is insanely good, right? The stats on Gadgeting Crest at 4-2 and Laser Core are still bananas, and that's nerfed, which is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
But going back to your other point, I think Belveth was often a fallback. I've seen both. I think I saw both of you, right? Were you replaying JukeYou playing some Belveth throughout the weekend?
Yeah, I think I mostly only play Velvet if I have like really good spot for it. Like if you get like scope weapon 2-1 or something, like you just hard force Velvet and like this leads to your stats where like low sample size, like you hit the right like angle for it, kind of like with Gnar, where like if you hit Ancient Archives into Gadgeting spot, like your spot is insane. It's like the stats will make it look good, but it's not really like a forceable thing. Like you can only play it when you get the opener for it.
I learned that the hard way because I think the caveat to what Admirable said was it's 31.3% win rate, which is bananas, almost like tripling any other standard composition that isn't Lulu. But the top 4 rate's only 50%. So it turns out a lot of people's spots, if they're not able to actually snowball that Gadgeting lead, can oftentimes just lead to a bot 4 or first. But perhaps a really good comp to keep under your sleeve for Checkmate. Hint, hint. North America never plays Checkmate. Maybe think about some Gadget. No, we don't know. Maybe the nerfs end up impacting it, but you gotta be able to play those kinds of lines going into the World Championship. My takeaway with Belveth, really powerful synergy with mana tempering. I kind of actually really slept on that concept a lot. Mana tempering, the more you cast, the more you're scaling your AD. Guess what? Belveth is basically like blue buff levels of mana pool, like in terms of she'll just cast all the time if you pay attention. So really cool interaction there that I just didn't really pay nearly as much attention. The last thing I want to ask about before we can move on from the stats is what happened to Mech? I feel like Mech's not even represented here. What made Mech so undesirable or unpopular currently this weekend replay?
In my opinion, I think the Ramesses that makes Mech kind of not desirable. Just because like a lot of times if you're playing a Garen and you sack 2 units to be a Mech, like those can just be 2 Ramesses, and honestly, I think a lot of times that's just better than being a mech.
Interesting. Wow.
Ramess peddlers, so yeah.
We replay sharing the tech. It's a Rammus. It's a Rammus diff. Jukey, do you agree with that?
I couldn't put my finger on why it felt so much worse. It's definitely just an expensive comp. When the tempo is high, you need to get to your 2-star mech. Like the fact that you're sacrificing so many units to this unit means the unit itself has to be 2-star, and you also have to get your perfect items because you're sacrificing so much stuff. You better make it worth it. So it felt like you had to have a really good spot to get them, make it worth playing the mech. And Setsuko still plays mech. I was saying this yesterday, that he has his ideas of what he thinks is good, and he still thinks the mech is worth playing. So there are spots where it's still good, but you have to get there. It's really high cap.
Okay.
We saw one mech perform really well.
It's not that mech can't perform well. It's just that I think the conditions, the way I was describing on cast is that you need a lot of things to go right, and oftentimes the composition is expensive, and you have to have items for everything. So it just
It's
feels
a lot of the meta. It's kind of interesting to me. You have to know a lot. That's kind of what I'm taking away from all of these numbers, is that you got to know more. If you don't know more, you're going to get sat down.
Sure. I can understand that. I realized I took out the numbers by accident, but I guess that's pretty much it. If there's anything else you guys want to talk about composition wise, I'm happy to move on to kind of the tournament results and talk a little bit about that. All right. So replay. He's in chat memeing about Rammus. He typed Rammus heart. Garen is more expensive Rammus. Okay. All right. I see. I understand where all the keyword strokes are coming from. Let's talk about day one, quotation marks, shall we, of regionals. This wasn't really a true day one. We only played 4 games, and then tournament realm went down, which also was just taxing in itself because we were having such long breaks to try to figure it out. What was happening on the player side? Because we were here casting, right, kind of figuring out what's going on. Juke, what was going on in the lives for players, like getting frustrated or people falling asleep? Like, what was happening in the player side of things?
This is for day one.
Yeah, day one. Like all that stuff.
I don't know. Like, definitely having. I've said this before. Maybe just on Reddit or something. But if you have a good start and you have a comfortable like point lead, you can play like conservatively, and conservatively means you probably get to your late game better, and then you end up topping out anyway. Whereas if you're playing like you need to win, it like messes up the flow of the game for you, and then you end up at the bottom again. So yeah, so that's for me. Like the longer you get into your win streak, the easier it becomes because everyone else is like playing more erratically, let's call it.
Higher risk. They're trying to play themselves out of that deficit, and it feels like they have to incur more risk. And because you're taking like a more conservative approach, you stand to benefit from them when those risks don't pay off. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe it's a little bit of like tournament play style. Everyone starts playing super aggressively, and if everyone plays aggressively, no one really gets the benefit of playing aggressively. And then if you don't play as aggressively, then you spike at a different time and you get the benefit of playing greedy. You know, there's a lot of tournament meta for sure.
Interesting.
But it's hard to see like without reviewing every single game.
And that's what JukeYou's doing, by the way. If you watch his stream post regionals, this guy's just watching everything he possibly can. Reminds me a little bit of Aesah in terms of approach, just like, let me see what I can get about every player. And we'll revisit that topic in a little bit, Juke. You topped out day number 1 points, 39, fantastic. Replay, what happened day one, man? It looked like you were struggling a lot at the beginning. I was sweating. The captain of my fantasy team was just taking a lot of bot twos. What was going on, man?
I think like the first 4 days, like after the first 4 games, there's like the fake day one, I guess. Like I was outside looking in. I think I was like right outside or so. I was kind of stressed for like day 2 and like trying to make sure I end up top 16. Like I don't know, like I think I low rolled, but I also think I just wasn't playing like aggressively enough. Like I was trying to go fast bait a little too often. I wasn't like willing to roll to like 0-0, like actually 0 on 4-1 a lot of times. Where like when I looked around, like post 4-1 roll down, I scouted and I see like literally everyone has no gold and they have the strongest board that they could have mustered. And I'm like sitting here like with 30 gold, like it's like my board's kind of good, like it's kind of good enough, but it wasn't a lot of times.
The ladder mentality where you feel like you can stop rolling here and go to 8, but everyone else is rolling, so you're under a lot of pressure. And also, you know, I feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but there were moments where things were also just feeling like rocky, like you were trying to do some positioning stuff, and like rift walkers were like attaching to the wrong. Like Zach was attached to the wrong rift walkers and stuff like that. Were you feeling nervous at all during the tournament? Because I felt like watching the gameplay, I was like, man, I doesn't feel like I'm watching the same replay than I've watched before.
I definitely get nervous. I think I get nervous when I'm too far ahead and too far behind. Like I think I need to be like in a good middle spot. Okay. Because I realized like day 2 I started like going 1-1-1 or something. I got nervous for no reason because like there's nothing else to even do at that point.
Okay.
Also like I get nervous when I'm like I started the tournament like going like 7-5 or something, like basically 2 bot 4s I think. And like it's just like, oh, I gotta make sure I end up top 16. So yeah, I need to work on that maybe.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other players, because obviously replay and JukeYou had a happy ending to this tournament, but some not so happy endings, or perhaps the worst possible beginning we've ever seen or might ever see in North American Regionals history. We're on day one of the competition. Clear in 4 games had a whopping total of 4 points. He went 8-8-8-8. I've never seen such a poor performance strung in a row. Now, granted, Clear did win on my stream after that day and complained about it, but I want to hear from the player's perspective. Did you guys notice anything? Were either of you guys in his lobbies going up against Clear as he was stringing together the greatest accomplishment we've ever seen, which is 8-8-8-8?
I know he was in my last 2 games. I don't know if he was in my first 4. I didn't notice him specifically, so maybe
because
not.
he was dead. That's probably why I didn't notice him.
No, he stomped on my dreams in the last game of day 1. Game 6.
Oh,
Yeah.
you mean the official last game of day
Yeah, the
1.
official last game where he actually went 1.
Yeah. So the impressive thing about all this is Clear didn't even finish in last place. He actually opened up 4 A's and then got 4th and 1st, which is hilarious because Gangly was like, man, this guy's 1st or 8th rate is like off the charts. And he did again, 5 out of 6 games, man. This guy's got 1st or 8th. What did he do in that last game that ruined your first, Juke?
He was just high rolling, and I was playing. I don't remember exactly. I was playing LeBlanc, and I was like, oh, if I can get a first with LeBlanc, that'll be nuts. But he was too strong, and I lost. So I see. I don't have the HP to get second that game.
Got it. Well, one thing that I appreciated was that Clear did say that after his 8-8-8-8, he needed to keep playing. Because some people be like, why are you still playing, man? Like, you should just like relax and take it easy. There's no way you can go through. He's like, well, you know, I want people to not think that I suck. I want to actually win out like the last 2 games and just prove that I actually do belong here. And I appreciate that fire. And it actually has resulted in Broccoli going dead last again. That's 2 tournaments in a row. This Broccoli guy, man, is just going dead last. Did anybody get any eyes on Broccoli? Like, if anything, did anything stand out? Like, Nathan, did you see any of his games?
Yeah, I went back and I watched some of them, and it was like before the tournament, he mostly just talked about how he just did not have the time to prepare for this how he wanted.
Okay, makes sense.
And so when you're kind of watching it, I felt like he was in spots where like he just truly was unsure what to do, and was like, I guess I'll just make 2 stars and try to put something here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, it's hard to say that Broccoli's playing bad. It just felt like he didn't know what to do. And that was kind of like where it was. I guess I don't even know if he had a meta read, to be quite honest. It just, I felt like he was just trying to play TFT, and so I kind of stopped watching quickly after that because I was like, it's really hard to judge what's happening here when he just has told me prior to this tournament, and then you're watching it, and it's like he just didn't know what to do.
Okay.
So it was just time prep, I think, for him. He's just busy with stuff, and when you're playing against very strong players, that's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, it resulted in him going last and able to spare Clear the embarrassment of going 24th. And by the way, chat is running a poll. 80% people have said yes, Clear is the GOAT of NATFT. He did finish 23rd. So if you are a fan of basketball, maybe that 23, the GOAT. Maybe there's something to that. Michael Jordan didn't make the finals until he started making the finals, and then he didn't really lose after that. So yeah, we don't really talk about those round 1, round 2 exits like we did in the early days of Jordan years. We'll see. Kyvix and Aesah, I think they joined the Broccoli camp. I read Nathan sat down and talked to as many players he could before the tournament. I think they're in the same boat. Just didn't prep a lot, and I said it a little bit beforehand, it's just as well as like, as much as I would love Aesah to perform well, it also does not mean that, like, you know, it actually kind of makes sense because he was kind of talking about how like, oh, I played like more Omega Strikers than I did TFT. Listen, I love Aesah. I wish him all success in the world, but bro, you don't deserve to do well at regionals if that's kind of the mentality you have going into it. I'm not sure if people like strongly disagree with that, but it's like I would be happy to see him perform well, but it doesn't surprise me to see him here 20th, Nathan.
Yeah, that one was. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think he's trying to get away from streaming TFT full time. He wants to get to a point where he's following a path that he wants to follow, and that's just not streaming TFT. It wasn't going to work. So you have to shift directions. He's already qualified for regionals at that point. Do what you like and try, but you don't have to put all of your time into it in order to make it. In order to, like, you know, do something that you enjoy. So he's just shifting away from it, and it makes sense to see it there. I like, honestly, I agree with you that if you can't try your hardest, you don't deserve to find yourself at those top spots, because trying your hardest for a player like Aesah is going to mean putting time into studying. So if that's not there, neither is the finish.
Okay, fair enough. Out of the players above them that didn't make it, Spetham, JD, Yunwilf, and Wage and JukeYou, who do you want to talk about the most? Like, who's the player that interests you the most out of these 4 players that barely didn't make it?
I remember playing a couple of in-houses with Spetham, and he would take some like pretty flexible routes into a first, and I thought, there's no way this guy is being ranked properly on the power rankings.
Oh, yeah?
Well, unfortunately, he's a little bit too flexible, I guess.
Wait, what does that mean? Can you give an example? What was like an example of something that he did crazy flexible and landed first place in in-houses?
He was so he was playing Gnar, but he started slamming like JG Hodge for Sona, and you would have this 3-star Sona with JG Hodge and like another item, no blue buff and no Gadgetine, and it was just like good. It was good enough to get him to the first place in the houses. And I was kind of surprised, like, oh, does he know more about this line than I do? Like, has he done the studying for this? I should like maybe he's just a genius. He's seen every comp and he knows so much specific details about Gnar. And Gnar is a comp that I think I know a lot about because I've been playing it since PvE. But yeah, so I thought he knew something I didn't know. But yikes, I'm not sure anymore.
Wow. Okay. Well, apparently he won. Kana says that he wrote a long thing about Discord why he didn't do well. But 2, I heard he got like. So there's part of the tech issues that he had to restart a game, and he was like in a really good spot. And that next game after the restart, he went 8th, and I think that kind of sapped a lot of his momentum. So heart goes out to Spetham. I feel like people might look at the result only and just be like, well, you know, STFT just wins 1 cup and day one's the other. It's like, come on, man. I feel like this guy just got really unfortunate end of things with the tech delays and whatnot. Replay. Any of these other players? Whether maybe out of the 3 that hasn't been mentioned, Wajin, Uwilf, and JD Zielinski.
Yeah, I mean, like the other kind of surprising one, at least for me, it was Wajin, like not making it to day 2. I ended up looking at a lot of his games, and like he kind of got forced into a lot of reroll lines. Like he played stacks on stacks, and he played like Kale reroll. I feel like reroll lines are kind of like you kind of don't get to express as much skill. Like you kind of just roll and you see if you hit, and you see if you miss, and he was kind of missing that day. So.
Yeah.
He also played Double Trouble Kale, which was like actually he was super missing that day. Yeah.
It was pretty woke. He hit Kale 3 so fast, and then he got set up in a situation where Double Trouble was his best pick, and I was like, oh god. Oh god. Double Trouble Kale. How are you supposed to get to the 8 duels that way, man?
Double Trouble Kale is like, I think I ended up looking at his like late game board, and I was like, I think your board is stronger if you just sack Double Trouble here. Which is like, if you're stronger by sacking Prismatic Augment, like something must have went wrong. But yeah.
Oh no.
I got a quote.
It just can't be good.
I got a quote from Raging that I'm going to do after we go through all the first 2 days of competition and talk about their play. Let's go into day number 2. My one comment about Yunwilf. Yunwilf just needed to play a little cleaner. A lot of the spots that he had, he could have potentially done better. Like, for example, he had Golden Ticket. He rolled for Twisted Fate 3 as his only win con. He hit it, but was too slow. He actually just had the whole like Twisted Fate stuck in shop and couldn't get it out in time. And that was the difference between making day 2. He would have had enough points. He would have won that game for sure. And that would have been the point swing that got him through. So stuff like that, just clean it up, Yunwolf, and we'll see you next time in day 2 of regionals at least. Speaking of day 2, we had one of the most uncharacteristic like performances from Robin. Robin had a pretty abysmal day, and I kind of want to ask like either JukeYou or rereplay. Did you guys get to play in lobbies with Robin? If so, were you able to kind of diagnose what was going on? Because this is unlike any performance we've ever seen from him.
I think we were in his final 2 games, right? And I remember those 2 games quite well because I was really annoyed by one of them, which was 2-1 Hero Augment. game where it was Cotton playing Draven, somebody, I don't remember who, playing Laser Focus, rereplay playing Hold the Line, and then everyone else was forced into a Temple line. And Robin in particular playing actually wait, well, maybe that wasn't the right game. Maybe I'm thinking about a different one. Oh god, no, that was a different game. I'm sorry. Maybe it was that game. Sorry, but Robin was playing time and a half in one of his games. I think it's his third, eighth, and with time and a half, he rolled a 6. And actually, so I was wrong. This game had 2 Hustler players. One of the Hustler players was mana per 20, or 20 mana per 5. Another player not in that was mana per 5, and then there's 2 Brawler players who were high rolling and hitting work early. So you could not win a fight in stage 3. So he rolled in stage 3 and could not win a fight. I rolled in stage 3, I could not win a fight. And yeah, so it was just like your whole game plan relies on hitting on stabilizing in stage 3 and like tempoing up from there, and he couldn't do it.
Got it.
For him. And then his last game was Underground, so
right. At that point, I think he was just kind of playing for, I don't know, like one big win, potentially move up the standings. But Robin single-handedly took more ace than he has than the past set and a half, which is crazy because he went 4. He actually matched clear. He went 4-8, which is really unlike him. Oh well, but I mean, we know Robin will come back, and this might be the last time we ever see Robin not make it to regional finals lobby, because he has every single set he's competed in. Sox, I don't know. I think Sox, in the words of Showtime, had the worst meta read ever, which is to hard force Ox Force Spell Slingers every possible time. But that's not true. He actually ended up playing a lot of Laser Core Warwick, but it didn't seem like it worked out for him, at least in day number 2. But still put on a decent performance. So I don't have anything too much to say about Sox. I just feel like he didn't prep nearly as much. Nathan, you talked to him, right? That feels fair to say.
Yeah, he's he's at the like kind of the mercy of a lot of things, or he's working full time, and he's like making a game, and it's Sox has very much had this idea that he's gonna trust his instincts and preparation for things. So if he thinks that something is good, he thinks that something is good. That definitely is competing against a lot of players who are not doing that. So your instinct would have to be pretty in tune at that point. Yeah. But that's just kind of, again, how I think he's going to play the game for this one. And I don't think he's had the time lately that he has had in the past. He's also got a kid now. And it's just, I think what really spells it out a lot for you, which this is a very weird look at this, but every single time you watch Sox stream, there's like a little bit more in the background. And there's a little bit more in the background. And there's a little bit more in the background. It just keeps stacking up. I just don't think he's got the time to play the way that Sox used to play. I think the field's getting tougher and his time's getting waned. How are you supposed to be like the Sox that you were supposed to be before that was happening? Just, as a player, that's not really going to work that way.
Okay, well, that's really fair to say. But I guess what Nathan is describing is Sox is slowly turning into an Asian dad. He's just hoarding nonstop. He's like piling up stuff, more stuff behind him. People who actually have dads that do that kind of understand exactly what I'm talking about, especially the Asian dad where it's like they can't throw anything out, man. They gotta save everything. I don't have any context. Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe that's not. Moving on, let's talk about Garchomp. Garchomp's strategy was playing around 3 costs, and I think he just wasn't really pieced together on day number 2. But again, it was his first regionals where he's able to make it far enough, and he outplays Sox, which, by the way, these are like finishing top 15 for the set, right? Like for regionals, that's still pretty good. So Garchomp finishing 14th, I think, is higher than a lot of people would have put him, especially given the power rankings perform. Then Dish Soap replayed it. What from your perspective, what was going on with Dish Soap? It seemed like he was legitimately getting BG'd. Were you playing in the lobbies with him?
I haven't watched too much of the VODs of his games, but like I definitely know his read was like tier start into AP, and like there's a good chance he just got like there's a lot of AP players in his lobby, and it's a lot harder to play the game. Like I think TFT is a lot easier. I think like he has this thing where like TFT is a lot easier to play when you're uncontested, like the most valuable thing that you can have in the game. And he might not have had that.
No, he did not. I remember even when he was uncontested, some things were not falling his way. The reason why I said BG'd was because there was one game where everyone was rolling down at the same time at 4-1. And And I'm not exaggerating. When 7 other players in the lobby all hit their carries at 2-star, and multiple other 4-star, like a 4-cost as well. So it's like they would hit, like, let's say they're rolling for Twisted Fate. They hit Twisted Fate and they hit Echo 2. Or they hit, if they're rolling for Jin and they hit Viego. But he was stuck on like Echo 2 and everything else 1-star. So it was really, really unfortunate that he was like the guy that was the odd one out. And that happens, but I think a lot of people might, again, look at results and just be like, what happened, dear Soap? Weren't you supposed to be like making it to the final lobby? I think that if a couple of things went differently, Dish Soap still comes in as one of the most prepared tournaments, or one of the most prepared players in this tournament. Right above him, by the way, is one of his practice partners, Kurum, who I think is the same way. I was watching Kurum's stream, and the thing that stood out to me was he said that he felt like this tournament, he realized that he plays too in the box, meaning that he's too like meta. He's just always trying to play things that he thinks is like the top 3 S tier comps, but he also doesn't really deviate much. And the last game, when it didn't really matter, he's just like, all right, this is like whatever spot for underground I'm just gonna send. And guess what? Kurum X puts a dub and finally able to get like a really good result. And he's like, God damn it, why didn't I just play this like all week and like took more risk? Because I think my conservative approach did not actually work out. And so I hope that this is a turning point for Kurum, Nathan, that like moving forward, he can just be like, yes, this is the way I was climbing effectively on ladder, but in tournaments, like I think I gotta change it up sometimes.
Yeah, that was kind of like really, I think one of my only criticisms of Kurum basically ever was just kind of trusting the idea of like, this is what it is, and then too much of that. And so I think that this was not a set where that was really the case as much. I mean, obviously there's plenty of opportunities where that comes up, but there's so many powerful opportunities. It's just you have to be in this one kind of specific spot for it to happen. And so if he continues to play that way against players who do have that depth of knowledge, I think that is going to be one of those spots where that changes a lot. And to me, I think one of the biggest surprises that I had was that he was taking this set seemingly more seriously, I think, than even last set, where he was trying to just practice and be stronger across the board. So that does feel like one of those spots where maybe there's something turning. And I don't know, maybe set 9 kind of goes back to what it was, and you play a little bit more defined to what the metagame is. But that is clearly one of his strong suits, is being very consistent with figuring out how to play the best thing and then figuring out the different paths that I'll get there. And this one, it was figuring out how to play the best things, which was a ton of different paths to get to one tiny location. And I that does stand out as something to me that like is probably his biggest weakness is playing, I think, too in tune with a lot of different little things. And if that changes, he's just a totally different player, I feel like.
Okay, well, we'll see going into set 9. Kurum, still one of the best players to watch, just if you enjoy the emotional ride of watching some OGs. I mean, we kind of talked about how Kurum is like the last OG from set 1 still competing in this regionals because other people didn't qualify. Soji didn't make it. Milk took a step break, right? Solus didn't make it. A lot of these like set 1 OGs. Kurum is the last ones that still kind of made every regionals. Let's see if he can keep that up. DQA, Cottontail, and Bossa Skills. Anybody want to talk about any of these players? Bossa Skills came really close to making it. In fact, this actually brings me a good opportunity to just bring up some of the quotes. Let me see if I got it here. So Bossa Skills, I asked him about how his tournament went. He said, disappointing choke, really bad positioning mistake, and game 5 cost me to miss day 3 by a point, and I lost 2 placements because of it. Sad way to go out of a tournament I felt very confident going into, and that's kind of disappointing for Bossa Skills. Any comments, Juke, replay about Bossa Skills tournament?
I don't have too much to say besides I saw this guy play a lot of Lulu reroll, and he's quite good at it.
All right. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for somebody to say like I was waiting for someone to say like, hey, he played Lulu like every game he possibly could. He deserves it or something like that. But honestly, man, it felt like one little tiny mistake really punished him, and he could have made it to that final lobby. It was very, very close.
I didn't know that. Oh, go ahead.
I do think the Lulu real comp is like deceptively hard to play, where like because a lot of times you're playing 1st or 8th, like if you're like make a small mistake in it, like you actually like get like a huge placement swing, which I don't know if this game you're talking about was a Lulu game, but like I do think like people underrate like how the skill that goes into the comp a little bit.
That's true. Juke, what were you gonna say?
A funny story about Mecha Cup. So I was prepping with Sully for Mecha Cup, and we had stumbled upon Lulu reroll and how forcible it was at the beginning of patch 13.8.
Yep.
And that was a Kaisa patch, and Lulu is quite good against this Kaisa because you have this like D-Claw Pantheon that won't go down against Kaisa. And then Mech became really popular like 2 days after for the tournament, and then Lulu sucked.
Yeah.
And then we like obviously didn't advance super far. I managed to make it to day 2, or day 4 because we started in day 3. But like by that point, I was like mentally checked out. Like a lot of our prep went to waste. But one thing specifically is like you just forget how to play proper tempo when you practice so much of this like lose streak into re-rolling into hitting at a certain point. You have to lose streak to get the items. Like you lose a lot of the fundamentals. So sometimes you just end up in bad spots.
Agreed. I guess since we're doing player testimonies, we might as well kind of share a little bit some of the other stuff. I really like what you said about like sometimes you just forget how to play tempo. One person who didn't really forget how to play was Weijin. This is Nicholas. He said that honestly, I thought I was well prepared and I played fine. I think I low rolled pretty hard. But if I played perfect or even better, I don't even know what better than perfect is. I definitely could have made day 2, which was kind of disappointed. Also, I felt pretty bad at the tournament that I put most effort in, ended up being the one I did the worst in. He's learning, man. Weijin, when he first started competing, he's kind of this bright-eyed, young, rising star who's like, man, if I just work hard, I will be rewarded. Now he learned. Sometimes you just do all the right things. It doesn't work out, man. It's all good. I think Weijin put on a hell of a fight still.
Gambling games. They're lovely, aren't they?
Let's gamble. All right, I have a quote from Kindle Gem, aka Paisanos. I asked, how did you feel about your tournament? He wrote, too many games. I am only person in lobby stuck on 1-star 4-cost carry sob phase. And then he spammed a bunch of Eminem emotes because apparently that's a thing. I asked Ripple Overdrive how was his tournament. He said, I think my main disadvantage in the finals was not being as well prepared for the 2-1 hero augments, which happened in 5 out of 6 games. Playing a normal augment opener is much easier to play a game plan, but 2-1, you have to be way more ready to play. And I mean, that was it, right? The final day replay was like 5 out of 6 hero augments. I was actually worried about that kind of developing for the whole lobby because I felt like a lot of people weren't banking on that. Wait, hold on. Why go to replay? We have the biggest 2-1 augment hater on the server in JukeYou with us on the podcast. JukeYou, tell us about how you feel about 2-1 hero augments.
Yeah, I think if Jin wasn't meta, if Jin was not good, it would have been a disaster. Jin can use so many of the 2 costs. That, well, I guess the 2 comps that use the 2 costs well are Infiniteam and Jin. And then if you luck into Burning Spirit, good for you, I guess. Like if you get the 2 silver ones, you're fine for Infiniteam. And then if you have like Hex Tech, you have they buff your cut, so your cut is acceptable. Yeah, you can play Small Game Hunter. There's you can play Guardian Spirit. There's like a good amount of hero augments you can play into a normal level 8 comp. And so I basically did not want to reroll it most of the time, unless I had like a very specific angle, like Ezreal or something.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking to reroll. In fact, I wasn't even looking to play Lulu because if it was a 2-1 hero augment Lulu, you're going to scout and you're going to find someone who already took like the best offense or someone who already took growth spurt. I'm pretty sure when we were doing the stats on this, the 3 best augments for Lulu are obviously those 2, Guardian Spirit and the last one was Chronic Hallucinations. But honestly, get paid and Flaming Ricochet and Invigorate were also just fine. Like you could play
interesting.
Lulu with those. You could play Lulu or Flaming Ricochet with Lulu. So it felt like
really okay.
Yep. So I feel like I didn't want to play reroll on 2-1 hero augment, and the fact that certain comps became meta in time for this tournament like saved it.
Oh man, we gotta delete this VOD. We have other people from other regions watching this podcast, man.
They can play Lulu. I could put Lulu on the top of my spreadsheet and release it. That shit like is too contested.
And yeah, China loves jamming Lulu as well, so we shall see. I have a testimony from Malala as well here, which is, I think regionals was a good event for me. Malala was a player that was looking like he would be able to contest Setsuko for average placement, and then unfortunately didn't get there. He said, I feel like I played well on the first and second day, but ultimately feel like the pressure the last day got to me, going to use it as motivation to try harder next set. Malala kind of have that reputation of crumbling under pressure. We'll see if he can come back stronger, Nathan.
Yeah, that's actually kind of heartbreaking to hear. I didn't realize that pressure was building so much on Malala specifically. Honestly, this is like way off of like the regionals thing, but it's like, if we just had cameras, I'd be able to tell. Like, it's so hard to tell when you can't actually see the player. You just watch them do something weird and they're like, are they just lagging, or are they just like losing their mind? Like, I don't understand what's happening with some of these little things that are happening that are causing major impacts. But that was something that I've had most of my cast is access to a player camera, and you can tell when someone is like really stressed or really nervous about something. It's hard to explain, but you can just tell. Now, what that actually means, that's a whole different story. But if somebody's making mistakes and they're clearly pressured about something, that one's pretty easy to put together.
No worries.
I didn't realize it was that big of an impact. That's kind of heartbreaking to hear.
We have JukeYou, who tells you exactly what he's feeling at all times, because this guy zooms in and shakes his camera whenever he sees something he disapproves of. He sees his opponent high rolling.
I watch too much Setsuko and this show. They do it so much. It's so funny.
I'm like, look, because the funny thing is, I have 8 screens up right when I'm not casting, and all of a sudden, just like, what's going on in the corner of my eye? Is this JukeYou zooming in and just like shaking his camera all crazy? I'm like, oh, I sense the emotion there for sure. Last testimony, and this one's probably end on a little bit more lighthearted. This is Cottontail, who actually, this was a snapshot that he tweeted. Cottontail said, I'm going to regionals with the least prep out of all the players in the tournament. If you place below me, just quit, no flame, parentheses edited. So he went back and said, you know what? Yeah, actually, I want to do this. I'm just going to change my grammar.
I feel like he added no flame.
Yeah, maybe he just actually wrote all that out and then said no flame. But Cottontail popped off. Congratulations to Cottontail. Incredible natural talent for the game. But that did set for the top 8. And again, JukeYou, replay. I mean, you heard it a lot on Hyrule Radio, but I mean, in the shortest way you can recap it, and once more from the regionals interview, kind of what was going through your head as you kind of realized you're going to the World Championship. We'll start off with you, Juke.
I wasn't completely sure. We were like doing the simulations, like on what people had to play for me to lose the average placement spot. So I think I kind of figured out, yeah, there's no way for me to like lose, and I was feeling good. It was all a little surreal. I didn't like really hit ever, but I did have like take a lap around the house screaming like, I did it.
Yeah,
I did it. It's finally done. Like, I'm going to Worlds. It's crazy. Like, I was expecting, this is going to do my best at regionals. Maybe like get day 2, get day 3. Like try my best, and maybe that was the mentality that let me like perform my best, because otherwise I have pretty bad like performance anxiety. So once it finally was finished, once the deed was done, I was like, okay, I can scream and like,
yeah, awesome.
What's the feeling been like between that day and like now? Like now that it's like really set in, like what do you feel like that emotion has been like over those days?
It's really weird because it's like strangely quiet in the TFT scene. No one's really talking yet. Everyone's a little bit tired from the regionals. I've been doing nothing but TFT for like 3 days, and now like even in various like study groups, no one's talking because everyone's like off doing other things now.
Yeah, it's vacation time.
And all I want to do is like talk more about TFT. Well, 1, because I have to, but 2, because that's like my routine now. So yeah.
All right, well,
that's kind of how it's been.
The good news is that I got the world's competitors into a group. We have a tradition, right, of putting all the competitors into a group, and JukeYou thankfully has some people to talk to, and I'll talk with you anytime I can, although I've also been busy myself, kind of doing some job things. replay, what was going through your mind, man? When you were making the world championship, were you even aware of it? Were you just like, oh crap, I made it?
Yeah, like I thought I was locked in on game 6, but turns out like Nature's messed with me. I was like, if I went 8th and Malala went first, like a bunch of tiebreaker things happen, and ends up I don't make it. So it's kind of good that I didn't really just throw the last game for fun, I guess.
Right. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't never do that.
I didn't really like really process it until like probably the day after. Like the day after, like I got like a bunch of like messages like congrats and stuff like that. I was like, wait, oh, I did make it. Like that's pretty good. So yeah, and then it's kind of like after that, I don't know, started playing TFT again because Worlds is coming up. Don't really have time to celebrate.
Fair enough. Yes, gotta focus far ahead and basically lock in, because Worlds is a completely different environment. I'm excited for you guys to get some global scrims and see how you guys fare in that, as well as carry that momentum. 2 of our 4 reps, but perhaps a 5th, because Kindle Gem and Robovan Kenobi will be playing an LCQ. I did have one final quote I forgot about from dpei, who did play 6th. He said, quote, last lobby was 5 out of 6 hero augment, and I didn't play a single one correct. And so that was what dpei said. But this was the first set for dpei in terms of like trying to take it really competitively. So I'm sure he's going to bounce back strong. People are voting in chat who's also going to have a strong bounce back. Looked like they were evenly split between Ripple and Wasian Iverson. This next segment is going to basically compare how right we were, right, Nathan? We like to review not just the results, but our own predictions as well. And so the good news is that we got 10 out of the top 16 correct. We got Digital Setsuko, Robin, Kurum, Ripple, replay, dpei, Sox, Malala, and Roby. The bad news is this was our highest chance to post a really good number, because there's only 24 competitors and we picked 15 of them. So actually the percentage hit rate was not as good as it was in other tournaments, because if you look at it, Wasian clear, Kyvix, Beth, and Broccoli missing, and only 8 players don't make that is not very good.
But here's the thing. If you look at it from a distribution standpoint, it's pretty accurate. Because a third of the players got eliminated on day 1. So if you're nailing 2/3 of them at that point, there you go. I mean, just a third of your players got eliminated day 1. So be it.
Yeah, fair enough. Cleared 8 and 8th makes a lot more sense now in hindsight. Juke, replay. Where would you put? Let's say that you guys should be here on the top, or replay is here in 7th, but where would you accurately put yourself right now? Let's start with Juke.
I don't know, man. I don't like to rate myself. I told Admirable when he asked me, I think I probably rate roughly in the middle of the field. I think it's basically Dish and Setsuko are the best, and then maybe there's 2 or 3 people that are well ahead of the rest, and then it's like whoever performed the day of after that. And I think I would, maybe put myself around 6.
Okay, that's pretty good. Actually, replay sent me his top 15 list. We didn't have time to get Juke, so we'll cover it real quick. But you got here at 7. Did that put more pressure on you when you noticed that people were like, hey, this guy is probably expected to make final lobby here, putting him in 7th?
Okay, I honestly was like 7 seems kind of low, so I felt like I had like a fire under my flame to like actually perform and like do better than that, to be honest. Yeah.
Wow,
yes.
I like that. Wow, that's the first time we ever heard that. Specifically with a newcomer making it. Most people were just like, man, I'm just happy to make it. I get the recognition. What a giga Chad.
Wait, so we need to rank you lower for Worlds as well.
Okay, yeah, I'm down to leave replay like off the list on Worlds and just put a big chip on his shoulder. Speaking of Chads, we also hand out an honorary award for best ballots of the event. And this one was a tie between a lot of people. A lot of people got 11 people correct out of 15. So I started weighting them actually through accurate rankings based off of who finished, and only 3 people ranked JukeYou. It was Admirable 1, AMD 2, and Nature's. But the problem with AMD's ballot was he put Kyvix 2nd, so it destroyed his entire ballot in terms of points that he could get. And it basically became between Admirable and Nature's. And when I calculated it all, it went to Nature's because he rated replay higher than Nathan did. And as a result, Nature's does end up winning. So congratulations, Nature's. Once again, by the way, that's back-to-back events in a row that Nature's had the best ballot. He tied with Gangly previously. I mean, this Nature's guy, he watches a lot of TFT. Maybe you should trust him.
I want to shout out Nature's for putting me 15 on mid set, but also.
Yes, he did.
I think
he did.
mid
He
set.
believed in you as well. He's got the eye for talent, man. There's something about it. There's something about it.
Nature's got a true Moneyball going on. I don't know exactly how he's doing it, but we're thinking very similarly. But his is a little bit more organized. It feels like.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, so we promised that we have a top 15. This is a replay, so maybe you can reveal where he actually believes that he belongs, and he put him third behind Setsuko Dish Soap. So it goes 1 Setsuko, 2 Dish Soap, 3 replay, 4 JukeYou. Wow, 5 Wage Iverson. And then 6 and 7 is Ripple and Robin. Then you have the bottom half, which is Broccoli, Kurum, Socks. And then the last 5 is dpei, Aesah, Clear, DQ8, and Cottontail. And so...
I think that's the 8 to 15 is not my tier list, I believe.
Oh, is it not? I must have put that incorrectly then. So let me fix that real quick. Give me a second there. So why don't you talk about the first 7 then? And do you believe that you are there within the top 3 alongside... Setsuko and Dish Soap?
I kind of agree with like what most people think. I think there is a gap after the first 2, but I think there's a gap after the first 2, and then I think there's probably a gap around like 6 or 7.
Interesting.
And then like I do kind of believe like it's kind of hard to rank people post like around 6. I think then it's kind of just given on the day.
Thank you. That's the reason why we have you guys do this thing, so you can understand that it's not easy. I do have the correct list, so I scrap what I said before about 8 to 15. He had Kindle Gem, Spetham, Malala, dpei, and then the last 4 is Bosso Skills, Garchomp Pro, Kyvix, and Robovan Kenobi. So how about this? In the second half of the list, who do you think is the player that you think will do the best in set 9 moving forward?
That's a tough question. I think a lot of it depends on like, because like sometimes like people don't like fully commit to the next set after like doing a set. But like I think dpei might actually be very good, because I think he actually puts in the time, and like he does more than just spam the game. Like he actually puts the time to, I guess, learn the game. And like I think like this time like he maybe got unlucky because there was a bunch of 2-cost hero augments who we bothered after. And like I think a lot of times like I think the kind of a big mistake is like, with 2-1 hero augments, you take augments that don't make sense on your board, but actually just high power level.
Right.
And like a mistake like that, like people will never make again. So it might be scary next set.
Okay. Kindle Gem. It feels like people are starting to catch on to it. You really think you rate Kindle Gem pretty highly, replay?
Oh, I played some in-houses with him. Like he was kind of smorphing. So.
So he impressed you a lot. JukeYou, did Kindle Gem impress you as well?
I don't know about that. I didn't play as many in-houses. I got like a headache pretty early on, and I couldn't really play that many afterwards. But I remember in one of his games in regionals, he just hard forced Gadgeteen Crest, or he didn't hard force it. He just got a 3-2 back for blood, kept playing Gadgeteen until 4-2. And gets a Gadgeteen Crest, so now he has Gadgeteen back for blood. Like he decided to go for the line, and I don't think that seems that correct to me.
Got it.
You know, maybe it is correct. He ended up like 2nd or 3rd that game, so like good for him. But those kind of lines don't feel like they're super consistent, and I think that's not being consistent is like the kryptonite of doing well at a TFT tournament.
Okay, interesting observation. I think I missed that game, but that sounds pretty dank, having Belveth Gadgeteens as your main carry, or as your main line. But I'm excited. Oh, go ahead, Nathan.
No, I was just agreeing with that. It's just that it does seem kind of wild in hindsight when I think about it. I'm like, I mean, maybe not the playing Gadgeteen part, like that. Just like, I don't know, maybe play because it's working, but if that's like your hard force, it's like, wow, that is brave.
All right, keep your eyes peeled for Kindle Gem and Robovan Kenobi. Again, this weekend, LCQ will be co-streaming it. Let's go into our next segment, which is Agree. This is our second to last thing that we do. We basically put out a statement on the screen, and we ask our panel if they agree, and then chat also basically chimes in and votes. All right, so here we go. First one is I'll let JukeYou start off in response to it. Quote, abusing bugs, end quote, like Ezreal's projectiles or vibe boxing lessons should be punished in tournament. What do you think, Juke?
They gave us tournament rulings ahead of time, so if they told us you can't hacker Ezreal, then I wouldn't have hacked Ezreal. They told us it was that you could do it, and they told us you could do the vibe boxing lessons one. Now, if they didn't give us a ruling beforehand, I would think it's. I don't know about the Ezreal projectile one and the vibe boxing lessons one. I don't actually know the full extent of the bug. Like, do you need to keep it on your bench, or can you sell, or does it work if you sell Vi? So I'm not completely sure, but like, if it's unavoidable, like, oh, you don't want to play Vi anymore, so you sell it, then like, what can you really do? So I agree that abusing bugs should be punished, but what is ruled as punishable, if it's already pre-ruled as like not punishable, then you just have to play on the even playing field.
Okay, interesting. I mean, it is hard to toe that line, especially the tour organizers. But I'm interested to hear what replay has to say.
I think the vibe boxing lessons one was kind of interesting because I didn't even know the bug until day 3, but like players are already using it in day 2 or like earlier days. And like the bug is like basically like, so I can't really get to reproduce it quite well in ranked like these days. So I don't know if they like, I don't know, Ninja fixed it or like I'm just not good at using bugs. But like basically like, the idea is like you play the Vi for a turn and then you can take your Vi off your board and all the units that are on that board when the Vi was on your board last turn like still get the bonus HP. And like I was like watching some VODs and like it seems like you just keep the bonus HP like throughout the whole game. Mm-hmm. Like using something like that on tourney is kind of suspect when like not everyone in the tourney realm like knows of that, because in my opinion like that bug is like quite game changing where like a lot of times on 2-1 hero augment you can just take it and you can play anything you want. It's a game changer. Or like other things you can do is like on 3-2 if you have a brawler board you take the Vi boxing lessons bug and then you actually just pivot into rift walkers later if like you're like super contested lasers. So like it's like really game changing. So I feel like a bug like that like everyone should know in the tournament beforehand and like you shouldn't be allowed to use it unless it's like known by everyone.
So only if it's fair game is when it feels like it's okay to quote abuse this in that sense. Okay, interesting. Admirable.
I think this is the reason we have rules, is so that you can tell people what they can and can't do. And if it's something that nobody else knows about and you show it in a game and then they decide they want to change the rules in the middle of this and make everyone fully aware that you cannot do it, well, then why should you be punished in the first game you did it? You introduced it, you showed it, they now made a rule for it. Like they had to change something because you were there for it. And so for me, it's just all rules are rules. And that's that. Now, if something is literally unenforceable, that's when it starts to become a problem. But bug rules are enforceable. And it's as simple as that. I completely disagree that it should be punished unless there's something that says this is against the rules.
Okay. And I think chat agrees. I also, or rather chat disagrees alongside with you. And I'm of the same belief. The only reason why I brought it up is because this came up with Setsuko's game when he mentioned boxing lessons. It sparked controversy, which is like, hey, should Setsuko actually be allowed to get away with it? In reality, I do think there is nuance. It's not like a binary, like if you abuse a bug or you use a bug, you get punished. I just don't think it is unless it's directly against the rules. Otherwise, it's something that like replays us. You don't even know what you don't know. Like, what if no one knew it and then all of a sudden you kind of stumbled upon it? There is some plausible deniability that you can't really prove unless the guy that went into it saying, yeah, I knew this bug and I exploited it and I hid it from everybody. Like, no one's gonna actually come out and say that. So it feels like you can't just do a sweeping motion to say, yes, punish everybody who ever like uses bugs like this, especially since apparently in chat some people are saying that also he didn't even use the bug version of it. All right, so that's our first agree. Let's go to our second one, which is a little bit more lighthearted and perhaps something that people feel strongly about still. This is the strongest lineup North America has ever sent to the World Championship. Let's start off with replay.
Oh, I mean, I've kind of been out of it, so I haven't really seen the other lineups we have sent to Worlds.
Okay.
I don't know.
I mean, walk through it. I can walk through some of it.
I think like just knowing the names doesn't really help you because like you have to like know like how good they were on that current patch, like how good they were like relative to like your competition. So
okay.
I don't
Fair
know.
enough,
I like
fair
our
enough.
chances, but I don't know how well NA has done. Like, yeah.
So you disagree because you just can't necessarily agree without information. Is that what it is?
I don't think I would disagree. I think we have the strongest lineup, but
And
kind of
that's what I
naively
want to
saying that.
hear. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. Juke.
What was the lineup the year Milk went?
He went twice. He went set
Oh.
5 had him, Robin Songs, and Spencer, and then set 6 was him alongside Goose. Hold on, actually, just let me reference. But you're thinking about set 5, right? The one that.
Yeah, I think set
yeah.
1. Maybe this is just like me being old and like remembering how dominant he was in set 1. But I feel like that guy, whatever set he went, is probably the strongest lineup.
Goobums was set 6 because he performed exceptional in that tournament as well. It was Goobums, Goose, and Milk Goose and Goobums, and then Ramblin' and Eniko went to LCQ. Oh man, imagine if we just did the top 4 there. Oh, okay. Well, Nathan left. He doesn't even want to answer this question. So I'm gonna go ahead and just say yes. I think this is the strongest lineup because I define the strongest lineup as the best chance for us to win the world championship, and I think that we have 2 players who have demonstrated a lot of tournament results proficiency in set 8, both JukeYou and rereplay. And we also have Setsuko and Weijin, who are some of the strongest players who can angle for first place on the server. And so it is not Cope. I actually believe that this is the strongest that we have. And also pound for pound, I do think that we have all 4 players who have capabilities of winning the championship. I'm just gonna be very real out here. Set 5, Nature's is like set 5 is our strongest in chat. I don't think like Robin was capable of winning the world championship in set 5. I just don't think he was. I just don't think he had he spiked regionals, and because of how fortunate he was back then, I think that people may have misremembered what actually Robin's average playing skill was relative to the field at the time. And I think the world championship kind of exposed a little bit of that. And even in Robin's words, he wasn't even exactly in good form for the world championship either. So I think that this is our strongest. All right, Nathan, you're back.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Set 5 was really strong, no doubt. I think that set 4 was really strong as well. But I think that there's honestly all the NA ones have been pretty good. But what I'm saying for this one is that I have to make a new one of these signs because this is my set 5 sign that I made. All right, and this is
really.
I put so much time into making this thing because I was so stoked. I was like, NA's winning. There's no question. We got Milk, and frankly that's all we need. But Robin can be there just by pure consistency, and Spencer was just playing a wildly different game. It felt like than everybody else. So I thought we had 3 angles to win. I have to make a new one because I think this is by far the strongest one we have, especially relative to the field. I think that, look, I'm always going to say this, even if it's a meme, but I think Europe is playing fucking weird. And when I watch China, there's a lot of things I learn about it, but it feels to me like they're too stuck in a box. It feels like that they're playing a lot of different stuff, but they try to force a lot of things. And I'm like, no. That's not how the game is working right now. You have to know how to get to those spots, not the spots that you can get to all the time, because you're gonna be missing so much EV if you pass up on stuff. And this is highlighted by so many games that I watch, and I think it's highlighted a lot by this particular regionals. I think this is the strongest one we've had, and honestly, I think it's by a pretty wide margin.
Wow. Okay. Well, that part is a hot take. Chat disagrees. 60-40. They think, at least the majority thinks, that we've had a stronger lineup in the past. But you know what, chat? It's okay to be wrong. That's totally fine by me.
Look at these EU winners in chat. I can't believe. Look, talk to me when you send somebody to the top 8 of worlds. All right.
Oh, I mean, Nathan, I hate to break it to you, but they do have a world championship under their belt, but not for long. At least in terms of the even score between North America, EMEA, is said for sure. Last agree. The North American regionals format should adopt a lower bracket / last chance bracket, similar to China. For people who don't know, China plays every stage, meaning like the round of 24, the round of 16, the round of 8, etc. Except for the final lobby, they give them a lower bracket chance. So, for example, if they have 32, if they have 4 groups of 8 players, it'll be like the top 2 advance, and then 3 through 6 go to like the lower bracket, and then they have to play for another opportunity. So I just kind of want to toss it out there. Admirable, why don't you go first?
Wait, what happens in 7-8 in this bracket?
They get eliminated. They get eliminated.
Okay.
So 2 players advance, 2 players get eliminated, 4 players go to a lower bracket.
I feel like it's kind of a harsh way to do it, honestly, but it does sound interesting to me. I think that there are ways that you could change it. Let me put it this way. I think that the regionals format here is good. I like the average placement thing. It's hard to say that I agree with this. I'd like to see it continue to change and adapt, but I disagree with this. I think that the format that we have right now is pretty good. I think it gives a lot of leniency to players who like low roll on a first or second day. And I think it stands out for the player that is the best performing over the course of the tournament, which I think is a major highlight to what it is. It adds dynamicism to the final lobby that's taking place. And I feel like that there's a reason that we put together such a strong pool of players for this Worlds. Well, number one is because our pool of players was honestly pretty good, but I think that this helps highlight who those players are the most.
All right, Juke, what do you think?
Clarifying question.
Sure.
So they play how many games before the top? How do they shuffle their lobbies?
No. So China doesn't reshuffle lobbies. They only play. You get assigned a lobby and you play 5 games. And then after those 5 games, top 2 advance, bottom 2 get eliminated. 3 through 6 go and play in the lower bracket and wait for a result of another group.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like that. I think ours is better.
Interesting. Okay. So you just straight up like, I just don't like the sound of that, and I'd rather just play.
Not shuffling a lobby sounds like crazy. You could just luck into a quote easy lobby, not reseeding. It's like you don't know how people are going to perform the day of, so not reseeding, you might just end up being an easy lobby because some people had the wrong meta read going in. And they were like, a different patch they would be the best player, but this patch they're not the best player because they chose the wrong line to go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Some people like that though, because some people like the fact that there's like narrative to like one lobby, right? Because you can kind of follow the story of the lobby for 5 games and really see kind of the journey of everybody going through. But I understand what
I like the most.
That is an upside. It's a trade-off, kind of what we're talking about. But really interesting take, Juke. Replay. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not I kind of like how we reseed every 2 games because I think there's a lot of like variance. Like there's weaker, like everyone in regionals is good, but like there are weaker and stronger players. Like you can just get like unlucky and like have like the best like 7 players in your lobby, and the other lobby is like people are too busy to prep or something, and they're just not ready. They're not the best like in form right there. Yeah, like also a side thing that's kind of interesting I think to bring up is like I like our format, but like I think the best indicator of like who should we send to Worlds is actually like average placement, not in just the tourney, which I think was kind of good that we had for regionals, but like also over the set. Because like I feel like that is actually a large enough sample size that you can actually decide if like a player is good or bad over that sample size.
Huh? Who would that be? I mean, that is Setsuko actually, right? Setsuko had the best AVP in the tournament throughout all the set as well, so he had both locked up based off your criteria.
Yeah, I think something interesting is like I think the 5 people, like the top 5 people with the best AVP over the whole set, like we're sending for them. So it's
interesting. Okay, well, chat barely agrees. It's actually the most narrow split we've had in quite some time, 53-47. I think people really see the merits both pro and against. I think people like the idea of not having like one day of really unfortunate games. You're looking at like a Wage Iverson where he just narrowly missed out, has an opportunity to play in that lower bracket. At the same time, I pretty much, echo a lot of what people are saying. I think we're pretty close to the ideal format. If anything, I wish there were just more players again this regional. I'm kind of sad that we had 24. If we had 32, I think it would have brought back a little bit more of the hype. But I know that some people argue that regional should be a little bit more exclusive. So that's another agree potentially for another time, as we can look ahead for a future regionals to potentially get that for us.
Hey, I'm down to add a day and add 8 more players.
Sure. And 8 more casters, hopefully. Okay, last part of the show, which is the most important, as everybody knows, is the fantasy results. Now, apparently, I didn't have the records of the mid-set finale, but so far, it's just been the Frodan show. Yeah, Bryce barely won Defender Cup, but as you know, he won by 7 points. That's just high rolling. I won the other two that counted, and we don't really know what happened in mid-sec, because apparently I can't find the results. And now we get to reveal perhaps the greatest draft to ever grace upon us with its presence. That is dpei. Somehow, this guy drafted 5 of the top 9 heading into regionals, which the only way you could do better is you literally draft 5 players who make final lobby. This has never happened. He blew out the competition. He has more than double the points of Admirable, who sits 4th at 168. Actually, Admirable got cleared by 120 points by me. I finished in 3rd, and Aesah finished in 2nd. Me and Aesah were actually kind of close for rank 2 and 3 throughout the day until...
Etham actually has 20 points. It's been wrong the entire...
Oh, okay. In that case, it wasn't that close for me then. It wasn't that close for me. So I didn't pay attention to that, but yeah, Aesah got cleared. He cleared me by 2nd points. But the most important thing is I draft better than any other TFT caster, so I'm hanging on to that narrative. Nathan, any words?
This is my first draft. And at the end of it, y'all were flaming dpei, and I was like, I think dpei's draft is pretty good. I thought he had the best looking one, to be honest with you.
You were literally the only person saying that. Even dpei afterwards was like, man, I messed up and drafted
Which
so
was
poorly.
mind-boggling to me. I was like, man, I don't know. The Kindle Gem draft was a little bit weird, but the rest of his team, I was like, damn, this team's really good.
Yeah. JukeYou has the feel to be the highest value draft ever. 111 points for $1
yeah,
from Aesah.
1111 is not coincidence.
Yeah, that's true. $1, 111 points. Replay, thank you for carrying.
I jokingly tweeted after you like had your tweet like, oh, who do you think did the best? And like I think Nature said, oh, you know, so and so like Aesah did the best, and I said, yep, time to carry the team. I was joking at the time because I was like, wow, how did I make it on this draft? No one really knows my name. Like that's a pretty cool shout out, I guess, by Aesah, but I actually did do it.
The reason that I didn't bid on JukeYou is literally because I had Kybix already, and I wanted to fight for Weijin Iverson as my 5th player. And then when Dan won it, I was like,
you wanted to spend 30 on DQA. You wanted to spend 30 on DQA,
that is not,
didn't you?
Okay, that was my backup plan, was the DQA. I was hoping that you would bid on somebody before that point, and then we'd be in a battle for 30 for 30. And then
he was
somebody
your best performing player, though. He was your best performing player.
I know that. I'm not results oriented like you are. What I'm looking at here is the overall drafts for this one. I wanted to take Aesah because I genuinely thought he would bid on himself more, and I took the clear one because I thought clear was an easy pick for $1. And going into the rest of them, the Kybix one was like, I probably should have taken his word where he said he felt like he was a little bit less prepared for this. But I just watch him play. He's always good. And then yeah, that was really what stood out for me. I was like, man, I bought too many players to start. That was my horrible plan for this.
Problem is,
first tournament,
overbid. Right. You overbid for clear at $1. That was where it all went wrong.
Technically, you're right. Yeah, I took up a spot.
I will say, just for the last thing, is that Weijin Iverson and Yunwolf were 1 and 2 points off from making day 2, and if Mortdog or Yunwolf didn't choke it for the Twisted Fate 3, I had a chance to go deeper.
Oh
I'm
my
mad. It's okay, Yunwolf. Good try. I was your first. I blame myself, man, for trusting you.
Well, it's about time you blame yourself for something.
All good. Replay, thank you for carrying the team, man. I was actually sweating a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, I remember like you were talking about your team wasn't doing well on day 1, and I was like in your chat, I was like, don't worry, I got like it's just a small hiccup, but didn't really believe in myself at that point. But
that was legitimately one of the first times I had ever seen Dan nervous about something too. It's like 10 years of being on stage with Dan, and it's like this was legitimately one of the first things I felt like he was nervous about. Like ever. And Dan was the officiant at my wedding after a joke question that turned into a real thing. He was not nervous about that whatsoever.
Yeah. All right, well, it's okay. Basically, we closed up the fantasy season with Frodan on top. 2 dubs, a dub by dpei and a dub by Bryce. Actually, I believe Kurum may have won one of the things. Like, I don't remember exactly, but I have to go back and look at mid-set, but either way, fun season, folks. Fun season. Someone asked in chat if there's any stakes on the line. No, because we can't have players drafting and betting on stuff. That's just that's definitely grounds for some potential punishment.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And with that, that's the end of the show. Let's get some final thoughts, any comments, or perhaps one topic that might be burning on their chest that they want to get off. But go go around and talk to people. So replay. Any final thoughts to wrap up this fantastic episode recapping regionals?
I don't think I have any final thoughts. Thanks for having me on.
That's right. Go North America. JukeYou. Any final thoughts and comments?
No, yeah. Also, thanks for having me on. Super fun talking more about TFT. Yeah, and thanks for replay for ranking me like 4th on your list, more than my game myself.
Yeah, in 24 games, I think they're pretty good, but that's just me. It's just me. Also,
No,
I saw some of your
failed my
lines.
mind.
You play some crazy lines.
Yeah, I like have not played this well all set. I played this well maybe like 2 or 3 sets ago, but like not this set. So everyone is justified for not thinking I wasn't that good this set, because I wasn't.
Fair enough. And you're peaking at the right time. And if you think that was good, just wait till the World Championship. JukeYou averaged better than a 3.0. He's gonna average better than a 2.0. Actually, that's probably not gonna happen, but we'll see. Admirable.
NA's winning. That's it. That's all I gotta say. NA's got this one for sure. I've only been saying it my entire life of anything related to esports, but NA's got this one for sure.
All right, and on that note, he echoes exactly what I said. You heard me say it at the very end of the broadcast, but I once again believe that North America will win the World Championship. Not to mention, May 28th is my birthday. That is Championship Sunday at the World Championship, right? So, like, what better way? Please, JukeYou, replay. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to give me any birthday shout-outs. You have to give me any presents. Just win for North America, and that would be great enough. I can't think of anything better than to celebrate my 33rd year on this planet and with a dub and rub EU's face in it for the rest of my casting career. Boom. Well, that does it for this episode of Don't Talk If You Don't Know. The last episode before our set final review. We don't have a preview for the World Championship, unfortunately, this time. But the next time we go live will be to talk about everything set 8 and do the final rankings. It's different. It's not a power rankings going to event. It'll be us giving a definitive who were the best players of the set. So keep your eyes peeled for the next time. And Bryce will rejoin and we'll try to look at the appropriate guests. Make sure to tune into LCQ. Make sure to tune into the World Championship. Find everything else at riotgames.com/TFTworlds. And the last thing is, please follow us on our social media. We have a new YouTube channel. If you haven't heard, youtube.com/@DTIYDK, where you can find all the history of our past broadcasts and everything in the future as well. From Frodan, Admirable, JukeYou, and replay, this has been episode number 24, North America Regionals Reviewed. And we'll see you guys next time for more TFT action.